A 63-year-old woman sat across from me with a fasting blood sugar of 180, and her doctor had just told her it was time to add a second medication. She looked me in the eye and said, "I watched my mother lose her toes and then her eyesight to this disease. I am not doing that." What she did next is not what most people expect. She did not cut carbs. She did not starve herself. She added 10 specific foods to her plate, and within 3 months, working alongside her own doctor, she came off that second medication completely. 2 years later, her numbers are still holding. Today, I am going to walk you through exactly what she added, in the exact order that mattered, and why each one works on a completely different part of your biology. Stay until the end because the 9th food on this list has one of the fastest visible effects on a glucose meter of anything I have ever shown a patient. And most people are using it completely wrong. Before we get into it, if this is your first time here, welcome to Body Decoded. I take confusing body science and break it down into plain English. No jargon, no fear tactics, just what actually works and why. If that sounds like something you want more of, hit subscribe now so you do not miss what is coming later in this video, because I am going to explain the one thing almost nobody tells you about why your blood sugar is highest first thing in the morning before you have even eaten. It surprises almost everyone who hears it. So let's talk about what is actually happening inside your body when your blood sugar stays high. Almost nobody explains this part, and it is the piece that changes everything. The hormone in charge of your blood sugar is insulin. Think of insulin as a key. Your cells have locks on them, and when insulin turns that lock, the door opens and sugar from your bloodstream moves into the cell, where it gets used for energy. That is how it is supposed to work. But after years of eating patterns that spike your blood sugar again and again, something changes. The locks get worn out. Insulin still shows up and still turns the key, but the door barely opens. We call this insulin resistance. Your pancreas responds by pumping out more and more insulin, trying to force the door open through sheer volume. For a while, that works. Then it stops working, and your blood sugar starts climbing even though your body is now producing more insulin than ever. This is the part that frustrates me the most about how this condition gets treated. The common response is another prescription, one that pushes even more insulin into a system that is already overloaded with it. That might bring the number down on paper, but it does not fix the locks. It does not explain to you why the door stopped opening in the first place. And in a rushed appointment, there usually is not time to walk you through the food side of this equation, the side that can actually restore how your cells respond to insulin instead of just forcing insulin higher and higher. That is the gap I want to fill today. Every food on this list does one of 3 things inside your body. It slows down how fast sugar enters your bloodstream after a meal. It cools the inflammation that is jamming your insulin signal. Or it helps wake the insulin receptor back up so your body starts doing the job it was designed to do. You do not need to add all 10 tomorrow. Pick 2 or 3, build the habit, then add more over the next couple of weeks. Let's start with the first one. The first food is fenugreek seeds. These are small, hard, amber-colored seeds you can find in the spice aisle of pretty much any grocery store, and they cost next to nothing. If you skip this one because the name sounds unfamiliar, you are walking past one of the more effective tools on this entire list. Here is why it works. Fenugreek is loaded with a type of soluble fiber. When that fiber hits liquid in your stomach, it swells up into a thick gel. That gel physically slows down how quickly carbohydrates move from your stomach into your bloodstream. Instead of a flood of sugar hitting your system all at once, it trickles in slowly. No flood means no panic spike, and no panic spike means your pancreas does not have to overreact with a huge burst of insulin. To use it, take about a teaspoon of the whole seeds, soak them in a glass of water overnight, and in the morning drink the water and eat the softened seeds before breakfast. If the taste is too strong for you, grind them up and stir half a teaspoon into yogurt or sprinkle it over your eggs. Start with a smaller amount because this fiber is strong and your gut needs a few days to adjust to it. Number 2 is cinnamon, and there is a good chance you already have some in your cupboard. But here is the catch. The kind matters, and most people are grabbing the wrong one. Regular grocery store cinnamon is usually cassia cinnamon, and it contains a compound that in large daily amounts can be hard on your liver. The one you actually want is Ceylon cinnamon, sometimes labeled true cinnamon. It is milder, it is safer for daily use, and it is the one I point people toward. What makes cinnamon effective is a group of natural plant compounds that behave almost like a mild version of insulin itself. They help your insulin receptors grip glucose more effectively, and they also slow down how fast your stomach empties after a meal. Several studies have looked at cinnamon's effect on fasting glucose in people with insulin resistance, and the overall pattern of results has been encouraging enough that I recommend it regularly. Use about 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon a day. Stir it into your oatmeal, your coffee, or a smoothie, and try to pair it with a meal that has carbohydrates in it, because that is exactly when you want your receptors working harder. Third on the list is broccoli sprouts. And I want you to pay close attention here because this is probably the most underused food on this entire list. Not full-grown broccoli, the tiny sprouts, just a few days old. That distinction matters a lot because the sprouts contain a compound called sulforaphane in far higher concentrations than mature broccoli does. Sulforaphane does something the other foods on this list do not do quite as directly. It works on your liver and calms down the process your liver runs overnight, the one that manufactures glucose while you sleep. In people with insulin resistance, that overnight glucose production often runs too high, which is exactly why so many people wake up with a fasting number that is higher than they expect, even though they have not eaten anything all night. Research on concentrated sulforaphane in people with type 2 diabetes has shown measurable improvements in fasting blood sugar, with the biggest effect showing up in the people whose numbers were hardest to control. You can grow broccoli sprouts yourself in a jar on your counter for almost nothing, or buy them in the produce section of most grocery stores. A small handful, about 1/4 cup, on a salad or a sandwich most days is plenty. Try to eat them raw or only lightly wilted, because high heat destroys the active compound. So far, every single food has done the same quiet work behind the scenes, slowing sugar down or waking the receptor back up, and we are only 3 foods in. The next several are the ones that actually change what your everyday meals look like. And quick favor, if there is someone in your life fighting their own blood sugar numbers, someone who has never had this explained to them this clearly, send them this video. This is the kind of information that changes what someone eats for dinner tonight. Number 4 is the avocado. A lot of people avoid it because they think of it purely as a source of fat and calories, and that fear is actually costing them. The fat inside an avocado is monounsaturated fat, the same family as olive oil, and it happens to be one of the more blood sugar-friendly foods you can put on your plate. Here is the mechanism. That fat, combined with the fiber in an avocado, slows your entire meal down as it digests. If you add half an avocado to a plate of rice or toast, you are not removing the carbohydrate. You are putting a brake on how quickly it turns into blood sugar. The rise becomes gentle instead of sharp. Monounsaturated fat has also been associated with improved insulin sensitivity, meaning your cells respond a little faster when insulin comes knocking. In practice, this tends to be one of the easiest habits to stick with because it makes meals more filling, so you are not reaching for a snack an hour later. Half an avocado a day is a reasonable target. Put it on your eggs in the morning, mash it onto whole grain toast, or add it to a salad that already has some starch in it. 5th is chia seeds. These are tiny gray and black seeds, and they punch way above their size. If you have ever watched chia sit in liquid and turn into a pudding, you have already seen exactly how it behaves in your gut. Chia is one of the richest sources of soluble fiber around, and when it meets liquid in your stomach, it forms that same thick gel we talked about with fenugreek. That gel wraps around the carbohydrates in your meal and slows their absorption way down, so the sugar releases gradually instead of all at once. Chia also contains a plant-based omega-3 fat that helps calm the low-grade inflammation sitting underneath insulin resistance, and cooling that inflammation is part of what helps your cells start listening to insulin again. 1 to 2 tablespoons a day is enough. Stir it into yogurt, drop it into a glass of water with a squeeze of lemon, or blend it into a smoothie. Give it about 10 minutes to gel before you drink it, and make sure you are drinking plenty of water alongside it, because that fiber needs liquid to move through your system. Number 6 is fatty fish, specifically salmon and mackerel. This one does not work by slowing your meal down. It works on something deeper, the actual reason your cells stopped responding to insulin in the first place. A big driver of insulin resistance is chronic low-level inflammation. When your body has been quietly inflamed for years, that inflammation physically interferes with the insulin signal at the surface of your cells. Salmon and mackerel are rich in 2 omega-3 fats called EPA and DHA, and these are some of the more powerful natural anti-inflammatory compounds we know of. They help lower inflammatory signals in the body, which supports a healthier cell membrane, which in turn helps the insulin receptor do its job the way it is supposed to. People who eat fatty fish consistently, a couple of times a week, tend to show calmer, more stable blood sugar numbers over time. Aim for 2 servings a week, roughly the size of your palm each. Wild salmon, mackerel, sardines, and herring all work well. Bake it, grill it, or grab it canned if that is easier on your schedule or your budget. Canned mackerel and sardines are honestly some of the most affordable, most effective foods on this entire list. 7th is walnuts. Of all the nuts out there, this is the one I point people toward first, because of what it does for your blood vessels and your insulin at the same time. Walnuts are rich in polyunsaturated fat, along with that same plant-based omega-3 found in chia seeds. That fat supports the health of your endothelium, which is the thin lining inside your blood vessels, and that lining is one of the first things affected by chronically high blood sugar. At the same time, the combination of fat, fiber, and protein in walnuts blunts the rise in blood sugar after a meal and has been linked to lower fasting insulin levels, which tells you how hard your pancreas is working just to keep up. Eat a small handful as a snack instead of crackers or a cookie, and you have taken what would have been a sharp spike and turned it into something much closer to a flat line. A small handful means about a quarter cup, or somewhere around 7 to 10 whole walnuts. Keep them raw or dry roasted, not the candied or honey-coated kind, and use them to replace a processed snack rather than adding them on top of one. Number 8 is eggs, whole eggs, yolk included. For a long time, people were told to avoid the yolk, and that advice pushed a lot of people toward sugary breakfast cereals that were far worse for their blood sugar than the eggs ever were. Let's clear that up. A whole egg is mostly protein and fat, with almost no carbohydrate, which means on its own, it barely moves your blood sugar at all. But the real benefit here is something researchers call the second meal effect. When you start your day with eggs instead of toast or cereal, you steady your blood sugar not just at breakfast, but all the way through to lunch. You walk into your next meal with calmer numbers and a smaller spike than you would have had otherwise. The protein and fat also keep you fuller for longer, which quietly reduces those mid-morning cravings that send people straight toward the snack drawer. 2 to 3 whole eggs in the morning is a solid target for most people. Scramble them, boil a batch ahead for the week, or fold in some spinach. Add that avocado from earlier right on top, and you have built a genuinely strong blood sugar-friendly breakfast. Number 9 is apple cider vinegar, and this is the one with the fastest visible effect of anything on this list if you happen to have a glucose meter at home. The active ingredient is acetic acid, and it does 2 things at once. It slows down how quickly your stomach empties, so carbohydrates from your meal arrive in your bloodstream more gradually, and it also helps your muscles pull glucose out of your blood to use as fuel. Multiple studies looking at vinegar taken before a carbohydrate-heavy meal have found a meaningful reduction in the after-meal blood sugar spike in people with insulin resistance. That is a real, measurable effect from something that costs a few dollars a bottle. Here is how to use it correctly, because this part really matters. Take 1 tablespoon, diluted in a full glass of water, about 10 to 15 minutes before a meal that has carbohydrates in it. Always dilute it. Never drink it straight because the acid can be hard on your tooth enamel and your throat. And if you are already taking any medication for blood sugar, talk to your doctor before adding this in, because vinegar combined with that medication can bring your sugar down faster than you expect. The 10th and final food is lentils, and this one proves the entire point of this video. Lentils are a carbohydrate, and they will still lower your blood sugar. Here is how. Lentils are built from a slow-digesting starch wrapped in soluble fiber, along with a healthy dose of plant protein. That combination means the sugar inside a lentil releases into your blood slowly and steadily over hours instead of all at once. They carry that same second meal effect we talked about with eggs, so a bowl of lentil soup at lunch can keep your numbers steadier all the way into the evening. Swapping white rice or white potato for lentils a few times a week is one of the more reliable ways to bring down your average blood sugar over time. Aim for half a cup to a cup of cooked lentils a few times a week. Use them in a soup, a stew, or a cold salad, maybe with a little olive oil and a splash of that vinegar we just talked about. They are filling, they are cheap, and they stretch a meal further than almost anything else on this list. Now let's go back to Donna, because her story is really the whole point. We did not cut her carbohydrates down to nothing. We added eggs and avocado in the morning instead of cereal, a tablespoon of vinegar before her bigger meals, lentils swapped in for white rice, walnuts instead of her usual afternoon cookie, fatty fish twice a week, cinnamon in her coffee, broccoli sprouts on her sandwich at lunch. Within the first week, her fasting numbers had already started to drop. Within 3 months, working closely alongside her own doctor, she came off that second medication entirely, and her long-term blood sugar average moved out of the diabetic range. 2 years later, it has held. She did not starve herself. She ate more food, just the right food, and her own body did the rest of the work. Here is why all 10 of these work together instead of against each other. Every one of them hands your insulin its job back without starving you. The fiber-rich foods slow the sugar down so your pancreas never has to panic. The fish, the walnuts, and the chia cool the inflammation that was jamming the signal in the first place. The cinnamon and the vinegar go right up to the insulin receptor and help it grip again. Do that meal after meal, day after day, and the cell that stopped answering the door slowly starts opening it on the first knock again. That is what it actually means to reverse insulin resistance at the cellular level. And once that happens, your body starts holding your blood sugar steady on its own, which is exactly why Donna's numbers stayed low for 2 full years afterward. Before I give you tonight's action plan, I need to draw one clear line. If you are currently on insulin or an older class of diabetes medication called a sulfonylurea, these foods can lower your blood sugar quickly enough that your current dose might suddenly be too strong for your new numbers, and that can push you into a dangerous low. So bring this list to your doctor, add these foods with your numbers being monitored, and let your doctor adjust your medication as your body improves. Do not ever stop a prescription on your own. So here is what to actually do tonight. 5 simple steps. 1. Tomorrow morning, swap your cereal or toast for 2 to 3 whole eggs and half an avocado. That single change shifts your blood sugar for the entire day. 2. Tonight, soak a teaspoon of fenugreek seeds in a glass of water and drink it first thing tomorrow morning. 3. Pick up some Ceylon cinnamon, not cassia, and start with a 1/4 teaspoon a day in your coffee or your oatmeal. 4. Before your biggest carbohydrate meal tomorrow, take 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar diluted in a full glass of water, about 15 minutes ahead of time. 5. This week, swap white rice or white potato for lentils at least twice and put fatty fish on the menu 2 nights. Stack these in slowly over the next couple of weeks. You are not removing the foods you love. You are adding the foods that protect you. Now, everything we covered today helps bring your blood sugar down during the day and after your meals. But here is that thing I promised you at the start. A huge number of people watching this have told me the exact same strange thing, that their highest reading of the entire day happens first thing in the morning before they have eaten a single bite. You fasted all night, and somehow your number went up anyway. There is a very specific reason your liver does that while you sleep, and there is a way to work with it instead of against it. I am putting together a full breakdown of exactly what is happening overnight and how to wake up to a lower number, and I do not want you to miss it. If this video helped you understand your own body a little better, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button right now, because that is genuinely how this channel keeps growing and how I know what to explain next. Drop a comment below and tell me your fasting number from this week. I read every single one, and honestly, the questions in the comments shape exactly what I cover in future videos. And if you know someone who is quietly struggling with their numbers, someone who has never had any of this explained to them in plain English, share this video with them today. It might be the thing that changes their next appointment. Thanks for watching Body Decoded, and I will see you in the next one.